Israel Madrimov, you just saw it end seconds ago. It is Terence Crawford winning by unanimous decision in a fight that showed that he has technical skill and he's still one of the pound-for-pound greats, but not exactly the scintillating display we were hoping for in the biggest card in years in professional boxing. So, that being said, is Jimmy Smith in studio. We're joined by Paulie Malignaggi. Chris Algieri should be joining us shortly. Paulie, once again, it ended seconds ago. What are your thoughts on the fight itself? Was it what you expected?
Well, not every fight is going to be a barn burner. I particularly enjoyed it. It was a very, very tactical fight. It was like a high level chess match, played out obviously at the speed of boxing, so it's a little quicker. But yeah, I thought both guys really, really boxed well in their own style. I wasn't expecting any kind of shootout really, and I wondered if Crawford could at least get his respect at this weight class, and the answer was yes. He was able to get his respect at the weight class. Madrimov just couldn't just walk in and press him the way he wanted to. But at the same time, Madrimov also fought a very disciplined fight and pressed in a very disciplined manner and didn't overcommit himself to where Crawford would be able to make him pay all that much. So it was really a solid back and forth fight. Even if you notice, nobody could really land a shot that they loaded up completely on. They had to take something off the shots in order to land. And even then, when they had to take something off the shots to land, a lot of those shots that did land didn't land cleanly. I mean, this was such a high-level fight. And in between all that, they were both in great position constantly. Nobody ever overcommitted defensively, offensively, where you wind up here or here. Like it was really, really. I mean, Madrimov did it a couple of times, but for the most part, a solid battle boxing match from the position game to the creating the openings to setting traps to feinting guys. Really, I was entertained, but particularly. I didn't expect the war. I know some people are going to say, it wasn't a scintillating fight. Crawford needed to make a really, really scintillating fight in order to get Canelo's attention. I do wonder how effective Crawford can be if he keeps moving up in weight. Like you're starting to see that, now he's not quite as strong. The knockout streak is over. But he can box really, really well. But Madrimov pressed him the whole fight. So obviously the power wasn't getting the respect that he might have gotten when he was a little at the smaller weight classes. And remember, Canelo is a guy who presses a lot. That's one thing Canelo does. Canelo's not very active, but he gets in your face and he mentally presses you a lot by cutting off the ring, getting in your face. So I start to wonder if going up to super middleweight is going to be a bridge too far for Crawford. But hey, man, he got the win, and I guess that's going to be the talking point from now as well. But kudos to Madrimov. I think he showed himself to be a world-class fighter. Not that we didn't know he was, but really showed himself to be a world-class fighter tonight. This fight was very, very close.
Well, of course, the chat is open on YouTube. If you have a super chat, have a question, we'll see if we can answer it on air. Someone can answer a lot of questions. Chris Algieri, how you doing, my man? Once again, your thoughts. The fight ended a couple minutes ago. Unanimous decision for Terence Crawford. Did you ever think that was in doubt? Was there any time this was in question for you throughout the fight? The scorecards were kind of all over the place getting into the later rounds.
Yeah, no, I thought Madrimov was winning the fight early on. I think that Crawford was not busy enough early on. I think Madrimov's skill level, like you said, champ, and he showed that he's on the level. I thought that was a very high-level chess match between both of these guys. Very hard to see a clean landed punch. Especially in the first 8 rounds of the fight. But I thought Madrimov was controlling the pace. If you looked early on, our compatriot Sean Porter had a really, really great insight early on, and he said something about the fighters they keep resetting, and because they were keep resetting each other's rhythm. Because I didn't realize Madrimov was that much of a rhythm fighter. I mean, yeah, obviously he's got that movement, he's got that in and out, he's got that roll, whatever, but he was setting a pace and a rhythm very early on. And you could see Crawford trying to get on that rhythm for those first couple of rounds. You have to have a really keen eye to really watch what they're doing when that kind of thing is happening. But you could see Crawford was trying to get on the rhythm, but he was a step behind in those early rounds.
When you look at this fight, the movement,
Ricardo, you gotta mute that, bud.
The idea that when you look at this fight, the movement of Madrimov was an issue. I remember a fighter, a lot of people don't remember because he had a back injury after, the biggest wins of his career. Dmitry Pirog, another Russian fighter, he would kind of move his whole body in this way that would, it set off Danny Jacobs. It was hard to time the guy. It was hard to get his rhythm. So he kind of move his whole body up and down.
That's a great blast from the past.
Do you remember Dmitry Pirog? And he would move his whole
body. And that's exactly the rhythm. You're right, dude. That is a great analogy, man.
You hired me for a reason, but you get what I'm saying. That seemed to throw Crawford off this kind of movement.
No, absolutely.
It's a three-dimensional movement. It's in and out. It's up and down. And then the hands are in there too.
And the key with that is you got to be able to punch off it. You got to be able to punch off it. You know?
Yeah, I remember he hit Danny Jacobs, boom, and Danny just didn't see it coming because the movement kind of disguised it a little bit. Is that something that surprised you, his ability to kind of offset the rhythm of Terence Crawford with that movement, that constant up and down? Did that surprise you, Paulie?
Yeah, I think he used all that in order to maintain because he did all that because you don't want to bust your position by trying too hard, right? So you do all that, you keep a rhythm, and it keeps Crawford having to respect you because he can't really get your timing. And at the same time, another element to that is you have to be able to punch off that rhythm because if you do all this rhythm and then you have to freeze to punch, it starts to become you're giving away a hitch. You're hitching you're giving a tell before you punch it. So not only does it make you when you do it right, not only does it make you difficult to hit in time and it forces your opponent to move back, but it also, if you're throwing off that same rhythm, now it makes the ability to anticipate your offense a little bit more difficult as well. And I thought early on, actually, we brought up Sean, who I thought that was an excellent point he made as well, champ. But then I don't know why. I don't know. When should we get Sean on the show this week? I got to ask him because I felt like then he missed the rest of the fight. I don't know where he went the rest of the fight. Because then he just
he had a very wide for Crawford the entire time.
Yeah, very wide.
I felt like he was the only one. And honestly, I got to be honest, the first few rounds in general, I thought were borderline disgraceful from the commentating team. They were just basically with their pom-poms out. And then after a few rounds, at least everybody except Sean dropped them and started watching the fight. Because when they were talking about that Madrimov at a certain point has to start pressing, has to start doing something, he's the one coming forward. He's the champion. He's the one coming forward. Crawford is spending the entire time on the perimeter of the ring, the first 3-4 rounds. What do you want the guy to do? I don't understand what they wanted the guy to do. The onus was actually on Crawford early on, where it's like, okay, at a certain point, when is he going to start to hold his ground and shoot some more shots? Which at a certain point it started happening. Honestly, at the point even they mentioned that, I thought both guys were still in that feel-out round anyway. So I didn't think there was a necessity to even bring up when somebody's going to get started. But if anybody had to get started, it was Crawford, not Madrimov. Madrimov was coming forward, cutting off the ring, pressing the action the whole time. And it was Crawford who was kind of taking little subtle steps here and there. And also, like Sean said, it was resetting. I thought both guys were resetting. And I thought both guys were constantly setting traps. And that was the first, honestly, 3-4 rounds before they finally started to, get off some shots here and there. Very, very competitive fight, man. Very competitive fight. It wasn't until the end where Crawford, I think, hurt Madrimov with a shot at the end of one of the rounds where you started to see, okay, Crawford's a little bit more settled in. But I didn't think either guy settled in that terrifically. And honestly, early on, I felt Madrimov was winning at the early part of the fight. By the end, it's still a close fight, man. I mean, this was a super, super close fight. But in this kind of fight, by the end, okay, I was like, all right, you guys get a draw, you give it to Crawford, you give it to Madrimov. I didn't have a problem with the scorecard, except maybe one. There was one scorecard that was like 8-4. So
yeah, but we had two. There were only 2 rounds, 115, 113. I think that was fair. We have a super chat question. Chris, let's go to you with this. For Paulie and Chris, and this is from Buddha Man, do you think Bud has been using PEDs since he moved up to 147? He keeps getting stronger and bigger and has retained most of his speed. That seems a little suspect. Chris, our own, I think was it Showtime Sean Porter, who says he's been moving up the right way. Can you explain that to our audience who thinks, PEDs might be an issue?
I can't explain that. No. So, I mean, in terms of, what you can do to move up the weight class, no one's ever done it the way that Crawford has, other than Manny Pacquiao. It's a guy who's actually been able to maneuver themselves up weight classes and still carry their power. But also, even tonight, like I don't listen. Every other weight class, Crawford looked to be the bigger, stronger guy. Not necessarily bigger, but he was definitely the power puncher. He didn't look at that tonight. He looked human tonight.
It looked very different.
Yeah, very, very different than at 147. When he moved up to 140, Listen, at 35, he wasn't a puncher.
I felt like he was hurting Madrimov more than Madrimov.
No. Listen, but sure, of course, but he wasn't the way he was in these other weight classes. At 35, he was a boxer. 35, he got a bunch of 12-round decisions. At 140, he knocked out almost everybody. I think Postol was the only guy he went to decision with. And then 47, he knocked out absolutely everybody. The highest weight class he ever been was 47.
Not 11-fight knockout streak.
Yeah. Then he goes to 54.
He wasn't a puncher at lightweight. Yeah.
Right. Goes to 54, fights Madrimov, and looked. Listen, good puncher. Did his power? Did he look like he was strong and fast and still hit hard? Absolutely.
His power still got his respect.
He still got his respect, sure, but it was not the same kind of puncher that we had seen at the lighter weight classes. So, in terms of him being human and on PEDs, he looked human tonight. So, there's that. But in terms of the way he's handled the other weight classes, I mean, what he's been doing in the gym, obviously, and what he's been doing at the kitchen table has been definitely working. He should write a book on that. But I mean, other than that, I mean, yeah, he looked human tonight, and he fought a very, very, very good fighter. Someone that I respected a lot, but I respect a lot more after watching him in his performance tonight.
We have a chat from Matt Borgerson. Paulie, Madrimov was Bud's toughest fight. I just think he was a hard guy to KO, taking nothing away from Bud. Bud shows he's still the man tonight. So in a general question, as you just said, the stock of Madrimov kind of went up. What do you think about the stock of Bud Crawford at this weight class against a guy, once again, tough to knock out?
I think the guy's got a good point. As far as hard to knock out, Madrimov's hard to hit clean as well as Crawford is hard to hit clean. This was a very, very good fight between two very, very good fighters. As a matter of fact, this was somebody who was boxing on the same level as Crawford, essentially. You know what I mean? Just in a little bit of a different manner as far as Madrimov's boxing was a little bit more aggressive. Crawford's a little bit more on the back foot, but still, they both held their ground pretty well overall once the fight got going. And it was a terrific battle of the position. I call it the position game, high level stuff. I'm trying to think if Crawford has had to deal with this kind of ring IQ before. I mean, obviously, Crawford has a supreme ring IQ, but Madrimov's ring IQ was surprisingly very, very good, because I expected Madrimov to be a little bit more wild as well. So you got to credit Madrimov and Joel Diaz for coming up with a solid game plan to curtail the wildness a little bit, because as good as Madrimov is, he does get wild at times in his other fights. And I thought his the ring intelligence he was fighting with could only be beaten tonight by another guy with super IQ ring intelligence. And obviously Crawford has that super IQ ring intelligence. But I think this was the fight where, I mean, again, I might struggle to go all the way back, but this is the fight where Crawford had to think the most. Like, this was a guy who kept him thinking consistently. And by that point, he kept Madrimov thinking as well. It was a fighter's fight in terms of boxers who will understand, or even high IQ fans who will understand. This wasn't your layman's kind of fight, man. This was a very, very complicated fight, but one that you enjoy if you understand the subtleties and the levels of what boxing is. And I give Crawford a lot of credit, but as I said at the top of the show, I do start to wonder if Crawford is going to be able to hold off Canelo. He wasn't able to stop the forward progress of Madrimov tonight. Canelo is not active, but he brings a lot of pressure. He physically, not doesn't physically mold you, but physically puts himself in position to trap you constantly and kind of suffocate you. And I'm not sure that Crawford is going to have the kind of power to hold him off at 168. Well, that's also why Canelo probably will fight him and not Benavidez.
Yeah, certainly a possibility. As you guys always say, you want to look good, you don't want to look too good. That could be the case. Well, another fight tonight that had a huge upset, probably the biggest of the night, had to be Isaac Pitbull Cruz, Jose Rayo Valenzuela. Chris, when we broke this one down, when you guys broke it down, you guys are the experts, you said he's a taller guy, he has good range, but he doesn't use it that effectively. He probably won't be able to keep Pitbull at bay. That's exactly what he did to win a close decision. What are your thoughts on his performance tonight, Chris?
Bravo.
Yeah.
You did what we didn't think we could do. And listen, we knew he was a good puncher. We knew he had the length. We knew he had the height. We knew he was a very good sharpshooter. And that was really important. All the things that we talked about is what he did early on. But then later, he started boxing. Yeah. So he was a sharpshooter early on. He was landing some really nice right hooks, really slapping hard shots right behind the ear of Cruz. Straight left hands right down the middle. And then he got into his boxing and moving in rhythm, really nice rhythm, where he's able to stay off the ropes, move his head when he was in position. I mean, it was a virtuoso performance for him. One of those performances that you need to win a world title, to win your first world title. I mean, I felt reminiscent of my own first world title, watching him do what he did, against that guy. It showed me for the first time how one-dimensional that Isaac Cruz is. I know we've been singing his praises, and we thought the Cabrera fight was an aberration rather than actually something that's an issue. But it seems now that is an issue. He is one-sided. He can be outboxed. He's very small for the weight class. El Rayo is 5'10", 70-inch reach. I think Isaac Cruz like 5'3". He just looked so small in there, even size wise, physically, he just looked very, very small. So I tip my hat to Rayo. He did his thing. He's a new champ, and he boxed very well, much better than I expected. He showed his power for sure, very respectable, but also boxed very, very well.
When you look at it, Paulie, Valenzuela himself, okay, great night tonight. Awesome stuff. We always talk about the opponent and the moment. This was a guy who didn't let the moment get to him. He stuck to the game plan. He was calm in the eye of the storm. All of these things that make you think, can he handle another big fight? Can he handle bigger opposition? Because the moment didn't get to him. What's your thoughts on that, Paulie? How composed he was early in his career?
Yeah, I didn't think he had the temperament for it. I know he was a tough kid. I almost thought he was too tough for his own good, and he would end up fighting Pitbull more than he should have. And I didn't expect this kind of disciplined performance for him. But at the moment when he needed it most, in a world championship fight, a fight that basically changes your career, because once you become a world champion, even if you lose the title, you're now an ex-champion, and you're in the mix. You enter that room where you can make money, where guys will seek you out as an opponent, and you get other opportunities to win other titles and so on and so forth. It's an exclusive room. And in a moment where he had always put up good performances, but in a moment where he needed to get this one, the big one, the world title, he put on a masterful performance. Pitbull, made it rough. He brought it, but again, like the champ Chris said, I mean, he has trouble with these movers. But you know what? I'm going to tip my hat to, Champ. I'm going to tip my hat to my boy Tommy, because he picked this guy, and I thought he was out of his mind. He picked Valenzuela to win. And I thought he would.
There was a number of boxing insiders who were actually saying like El Rayo was looking really, really good.
They called him a banana peel, right, Chris? Somebody told us it's banana peel, right?
That was coming, yeah. So we were getting information that he was a potential banana peel, and we all shrugged their shoulders like, yeah, no, he is, but probably Isaac Cruz is going to win. Listen, he did it.
It's not that I didn't think he was good enough. I didn't think he could be disciplined enough. I thought he was too tough for his own good. I thought he would fight too much, because that's typically what he ends up doing. But bro, he kept it together on a night where he needed it most. On a life-changing night. Congratulations to Valenzuela, man.
Congrats, Jim.
Guys in boxing as well, man.
Welcome to the welcome to the fraternity.
Now, Chris, another thing, as a grappler myself, every time that Isaac Cruz came in, he would go to this kind of what we call guillotine position. He put his hand over his head and kind of hold him, like the veteran stuff, and then get a break and push apart and do kind of these veteran moves. Where do you think he goes now? Teofimo Lopez, what do you think is next possibly for Valenzuela after the upset?
I love the Teofimo fight. I think that fight makes a lot of sense. Teofimo was calling out Isaac Cruz anyway, was saying that was the fight that made sense for him in terms of status and money. So I think we live in a world of unifications. Why not get these two champions together? And listen, Valenzuela, southpaw, good puncher, tall for the weight class, taller than Teofimo Lopez, has a really, really good straight left hand. Obviously, she has a nice little check hook, which has given Teofimo problems in the past. I think it's a good fight. I think it's not a foregone conclusion. Teo's my guy. I think he's the best guy at 140. I think even with the Valenzuela coming to the weight class, I still think Teofimo is the best guy in the weight class. But it's not saying that Valenzuela can't have another great night. So I would like to see that fight.
And Teo is so inconsistent. In reality, this entire weight class is so inconsistent.
Right. Yeah.
Today's guy that impresses you so much is tomorrow's disappointment. I mean, it's look at the guys we've been so up and down on. Teofimo is one of them. He's super inconsistent. And then you have Jermaine Ortiz with the guy that Teo beat has also been up and down. You have Liam Paro was kind of average. Then he beats Matisse. Matias, who we were super high.
Who was the boogeyman? Well, I wasn't, but the boogeyman,
and then the guy lays an egg, and then And then you had Raleigh got blown away by Pitbull. Pitbull came out of nowhere to the 140-pound division. Obviously, Haney and Ryan they're up in the air.
They've extinguished each other actually.
Yeah.
So
Navarrete stumbled. Remember, gentlemen? Navarrete
35, 35.
stumbles. Yeah, but this idea, right?
Yeah, you can't get a hang on it, man. So I don't, and plus Teal Cheech is such big names. I'm not sure if Teal would want to fight a new champion. I mean, it's possible.
But if Teal wants to do what I think he should is unify the division. Now Matias is out. You got Valenzuela, who is coming up to the weight class. Only is going to be a second fight at 140. He's a very beatable guy. Teofimo takes that fight, gets that win. There's places now for Teofimo. And then Liam Paro is not the status type fight that he's looking for. But if it's the last link of becoming a unification, you can make that fight happen. Although he is a tough style.
Let me roll together a question we got with something that was occurring to me. This is from Matt Borgenson. He said, do you guys think that Madrimov could be a sleeper generational talent like Crawford? I feel like only special fighters can give special fighters trouble. Madrimov would have beat anyone else. This is a guy, 11 pro fights going into this fight. We also saw Valenzuela 13-2 right now. So, I mean, guys are getting so good, 10, 15 fights. You didn't see that 20 years ago, maybe even a generation before. Paulie, what's your opinion about this? I know you talk about the amateur credentials of some of these Eastern European guys, but the fact that certain professionals are getting so good so fast, what do you think that is?
Yeah, I think it's the amateur career. That's why they're getting good so fast and they're moving so fast. Remember that up until 1990, the Eastern Bloc couldn't turn pro, so you didn't really have this kind of elevator to the top that was the fast track to the top that was that fast where you guys turned pro and got title shots right away. As a matter of fact, at first it was kind of awkward. Guys were turning pro from the Eastern Bloc and they were going through the regular, going up the ladder routine, and it was like awkward because they were blowing everybody away for like 20 fights. And it was like at a certain point, you finally got to like the Lomachenko generation, and you realized, okay, guys, we're not going to waste 20 fights on these guys. These guys can move into big title contention in 10 fights or whatnot. And so now you're starting to see the fast track. And of course, even at the high level, you see a Madrimov who can go neck and neck with the number one pound for pound fighter in the world. So it is living up to its expectation. But at first it was awkward. It's still like, something that's a trend that's still trying to be figured out, how to properly bring these Eastern fighters up the ladder, because also that's where you become a star, right? People don't follow the amateurs the same way. So if you're suddenly thrust into the limelight from the beginning, your star hasn't been developed yet either. So it's still an awkward way to mix the business and the sport together. But I think a lot of these guys that have these kind of amateur careers, they could fast track themselves to a high level pretty quickly. And Madrimov is the latest guy on this list. He's a very, very good fighter, terrific fighter. If the fight would have been a draw tonight, I wouldn't have thought it was crazy. You know what I mean? Like, honestly, I wouldn't have been like, oh, it was that close. I don't have a problem with Crawford winning, but it was that close. And I think Madrimov really showed me a different level. I didn't expect him to be this good. I knew he was good, and I felt like he would give problems, but I didn't expect him to be this good. He was also, like I said, Valenzuela surprised me with his discipline. Madrimov also surprised me with his discipline, because Madrimov has a tendency to get a little bit wild in some fights, and so his discipline in the fight also surprised me.
And his conditioning, because he was able to keep that up. And it was funny, I was watching the fight early on, and I think I was in round 4 or 5, and I'm like, if he keeps this up, he's gonna win the fight, because I had him way ahead early on, and Crawford really, really finished strong at the end. So yeah, I agree with you. If this was a draw, but either way, this is a 7-5 fight, 8-4 max. 7-5, I think is really what this fight really is. But Madrimov started strong, and I was like, man, if this guy can keep this up, he's gonna win this fight. Because Crawford really, he was a bit handcuffed, especially for him. Yes, he starts slow, and he normally takes him 3, 4, sometimes 5 rounds to figure it out. It took him like 6 or 7 to figure this guy out. And then he really came on. 9, 10, 11, 12 was really when Crawford, we start to see, the Crawford that we're used to. Madrimov's boxing skill, his IQ, his ability to set traps, his offbeat rhythm, his ability to change rhythm consistently throughout the fight was very, very high level. You see extremely, extremely disciplined throughout. Got a little tired at the end, and I think that's where Crawford was able to step on it and really take advantage. But I mean, this super, super close fight. This was a chess match. These guys were matching wits the entire time, and I guarantee you, Crawford has a ton of respect for Israel Madrimov from now on.
I think he got tired maybe from the body shots. Crawford landed some tough body shots. He was investing in the body even early, and I think later on it may have paid some of the dividends as well. But I think that you know, for as far as this kind of fight that it was, I remember during my boxing career, I had like certain fights that I called them like the IQ fights, where both guys fought so well and so intelligently. It was were so good tactically that I would set those fights aside and watch them when I wanted to like study just the tactical part of the sport, you know, and learn some things. I remember, for example, like in this list of fights, I had James Toney against Mike McCallum. You know, that was a fight where two high IQ guys were fighting. I could watch both guys. A lot of times I would put on a tape and watch one guy, but there were certain fights that was such high IQ that I'd put it on to watch both guys to see what I could pick up. And I'd watch
Leonard and Benitez is that fight for me.
Exactly. I was another one on that list. Yeah.
Yep.
And I'd watch those kind of fights over and over and over again, you know, because you could watch both guys and you could pick up different things constantly. I feel like this is the kind of fight that will go on that kind of list, you know, where it's like both guys were really, really high IQ tonight. There was so many subtle layers to this fight.
Do you remember?
But champ, you have to be at a certain level to even understand what you're watching.
That's why I say you got to be a pro prospect.
And I think a lot of people are probably watching this fight and be like, what's going on? This is not what I'm used to. But if you really are looking, and that's what I mean when Sean, it was so brilliant when Sean said early on about how they keep resetting. That really set the tone for the night for what was going to happen all night long. That's really what was going on. It was super, super high level stuff between two fantastic fighters and a very, very different places in their career. Obviously, Crawford's 40-0 and Madrimov has 10 fights, and we got two guys who are matching wits for 12 rounds in a very, very tightly contested matchup. It was yeah, I agree. It was a very, very good fight.
We're talking about, of course, the elevator to the top. Someone's elevator, I guess, kind of stalled. Well, he did get a unanimous decision. David Morell on the walk-in was being talked about like Benavidez. He talked about Canelo. He'd be in that possible mix, that he would look great tonight. We thought that same thing this week, breaking this fight down. And he did win a unanimous decision over Kalajic. He didn't look great, to say the least. Paulie, what was your thought on his performance? Once again, this week, you know, you kind of put him in that class of Benavidez and Canelo and maybe get that big fight next. Didn't shine tonight at light heavyweight. Is that a fair assessment?
Yeah, but Hot Rod is also a guy who nobody really looks good against. I think only Beterbiev who stopped Hot Rod, but Beterbiev stops everybody. Hot Rod has that.
That was also 5 years ago before Hot Rod was.
Yeah, you know. But Hot Rod has, you know, given tough fights to guys like Marcus Brown. He's given tough fights. You know, he's the banana peel type of guy. You know, so not surprised. Not surprised at all, but you know the fact that it's one of those fights. Hot Rod is one of those guys where if you're able to be good enough to beat him, you got to be of a certain level to even beat him. But then if you're able to beat him, even if you're not looking spectacular, you'll be better for the rounds you got in with Hot Rod because he keeps you thinking. He tests your patience. He's a simple fighter, but he's very good at the simplicities, and so he keeps you honest. And you're not going to be able to come out of pocket against him. Your patience is going to get essentially tested, and you're going to have to work on those things. So yeah, I mean, Morell didn't look excellent, but at the same time, you know, you're fighting an opponent who has this reputation as well.
How different, Chris, than Benavidez moving up and having a similar performance once again against a guy who's awkward, difficult to look good against, experienced. What's your thought on the difference, if there was one, between the two performances, Benavidez and Morell tonight?
Hey, guys, guess what? Weight classes matter. There's a reason we have weight classes. These guys move up, and they look more pedestrian than we're used to. Just, okay, 7 pounds is a lot, okay? I know it doesn't seem like it to a lot of people who don't fight. 7 pounds is a lot. 168, 175 is a big deal.
And Hot
Rod's been fighting at 75 for a long time.
And he kept his stock, too. He's going to continue to be that guy.
Yes, but I'm also going to argue that we saw an improved Hot Rod. We've had Hot Rod on our air on ProBox TV. He's fought a few times. Also, he's been in camp with Beterbiev since his loss, right? So he was a sparring partner for Beterbiev from multiple camps since his loss to Beterbiev. You don't think he's going to learn anything in that camp working with that guy? Yeah. Not to mention, if you watch his style in this fight,
learn not to get hit.
Yeah, learn not to get your head knocked off. Yeah. But if you saw the way that Hot Rod fought tonight, I've never seen Hot Rod fight like that. Mm-hmm. He had an in and out on his toes, back and forth, almost amateurish, the way he was kind of like amateurish in a good way, high level amateur, but he was able to have that in and out bouncing style. I've never seen him do it before. He's always had power, very, very good straight right hand, good left hook, physically strong, great body type for the weight class, tall, wide shoulders, very long arms.
Very cognizant of range.
very cognizant of range. You add that movement, that ability, that kind of style. This is not the bombs away hot rod that we've seen in the past. You mentioned Marcus Brown. Do you remember that fight, Paulie? Ugly as hell. Fighting like he was in a bodega. Both of them. Just fighting like they were in a bodega. They was back and forth, throwing it all over the place. Both guys hit the ground. And when he fought Beterbiev, he even admitted he was like, I was kind of in over my head at the time, but I just was trying to knock the guy out. This is a whole different guy. So trying to compare those fights and those fighters is a very different thing. I think Morell fighting at 75 for the first time, where he didn't look like this physically imposing guy. He didn't look bigger than Hot Rod. He didn't look like this big, massive guy like he always has a 68. He looked like a regular 75-pounder. So I think he needs to mature into the weight class, Morell. But I think it was a good win against a very, very tough guy who's hard to look good against, like you said, champ. But yeah, guess what? Weight classes matter and people are human. And that's not a bad thing. I think Morell will fit in just nicely at 175, but needs to get some fights under his belt first.
Is it part of it that we're used to so many all-time greats? Roy Jones Jr. went up to heavyweight. We don't realize how good those guys are to be able to do that so effortlessly, in a sense where, oh yeah, six division world champion. We almost don't hear it these days because so many of the greats were able to do it so effortlessly that we don't respect how difficult it is. Paulie, is that part of it?
Yeah,
we saw Roy Jones do it and go, oh yeah, he went up to heavyweight. It's like, yeah, you know how good he was?
Roy will spoil everybody.
Yeah.
You can't put if you compare to everybody to Roy Jones, you're gonna live a very disappointed life.
Yeah, we all suck compared to Roy. Everybody sucks compared to Roy.
I think I think everything in proper context. I think these guys still have to sort of grow into the light heavyweight division in the proper way. We're comparing their first foray into the light heavyweight division, and they honestly fought pretty good fighters in their first.
Both of them, yeah, both.
Benavidez fought Vazdig, a former world champion, and now Hot Rod tonight. Morell fought Hot Rod tonight, who nobody looks good against. So I think the jury's still out on how they'll be at light heavyweight, but certainly I'll look forward to seeing more of them.
What I'm curious about, we have a question. Matt Borgerson, I had an issue with Crawford staying southpaw too much. Got hit with that right. Should he have went orthodox more often? The commentary crew, if you listen, said he was southpaw to take away the jab of Madrimov, although it took away some of the offense of Crawford. Do you agree, A, with what the commentary had to say about that, Chris? And do you believe it was a good exchange to make?
If you watch Crawford's last bunch of fights, he's always southpaw. Yep. He used to switch. He doesn't really switch anymore. He fights southpaw. He fought Spence southpaw from the opening bell until the knockout. Prior to that, trying to think who was he fighting before that. Avanesian. He fights southpaw now. That's pretty much that's where he is most dominant. It certainly seems. He's much more comfortable there, and he used to switch more often than he does now. He used to utilize both stances for different types of styles. But recently, he has just been southpaw, and I think he's more comfortable there. His jab, his right hand is phenomenal. He knocked out Kell Brook with a southpaw jab in the second round, I believe. So, I don't think he's really switching like he used to, and actually using it based on the opponent. That's just the style that he chooses to fight. I think he more uses the other positions if he needs them. I think it seems like he's more southpaw until he needs to make an adjustment. In case he has to make an adjustment, he has another option. But for the most part, his last bunch of fights, if you really watch them, he's always southpaw.
Let me combine. We have two questions, and they're very similar in a way to me, so I want to combine them a little bit. Jared Stewart asks us, do you think a fight with Spence against Madrimov might work now that we see how strong and rugged he is? Another question was Pitbull versus Matias. Just in all caps. That's from KDA Keys. This idea that certain fighters' stock might have gone up in defeat. Do you believe that happened? Now, you guys are all saying, well, oh man, my respect for Madrimov went way up, but he's a rugged guy who's awkward and may make other guys look bad. Pitbull showed some vulnerabilities, might make somebody else look good. What are your thoughts on that kind of idea that some stock might have gone up in losses? What's your thought, Paulie?
I mean, I guess you make styles.
Pitbull
versus Matias looked bad in the losses they had, but overall, they generally have a very positive reputation for being very, very exciting fighters. I think if you match them up right now, coming off the bad losses, where their sort of some weakness was exposed, I think it ends up becoming a loser leaves town matchup. I don't know if you want to get rid of these guys so quickly. I think so that I think maybe get them both a win, and then I wouldn't mind seeing them up against each other. As far as Madrimov and Spence is concerned, I mean, this guy must not like Errol Spence that much, man. Because I think he's taking enough damage. You know, he's got to go up and wait and take on this animal. Madrimov is not a guy. I think if you're going to test out Spence, test him out at welterweight or with a mid-range junior middleweight if he's going to do that. If he's going to go that route.
Now, the idea, Chris, once again, that stocks go up and down based on wins and losses, that losses can sometimes elevate you. When it comes to Madrimov, it's not going to be Errol Spence. Do you think he has trouble getting a big fight because he looks so good or because his stock elevated? What's your thought on his next move, Chris?
Well, I mean, obviously he looks so good that people are don't want to take the risk, but also his name is now in a different place. You know, he's reached a whole different category and level of fighter. Is the recognition that he got from this performance is going to elevate him and his status. So also listen, it looks to me like Turki Al-Sheikh and the people involved with the Riyadh season look at these guys, even win or loss. If you fight well, you're going to get a callback and you're going to get attention. So I don't think Madrimov is a guy who's going to be left in the wayside now. I think he is a very talented guy. I think he may be one of the best 154-pounders in the world today. You know, I look at him. I look at Crawford. I look at Virgil Ortiz. You know, Fondora's coming back. He's probably going to fight Spence. I think both of those guys are lower level than Madrimov. I think they're both lower level than even Virgil Ortiz. So we got different levels that are related, you know, that are going on in these weight classes. Madrimov is just below Terence Crawford at this point after tonight. You know, he showed his class. He showed where he's at. And in terms of this weight class, I'm looking at him at you know, possibly sharing number 2 spot with Virgil Ortiz, if not number 2, and then Virgil at number 3. You know, he got edged by Crawford tonight, who's number 1. I don't put him below number 2. He's either number 2 or tied at 2, you know, in my book. So he should be getting big fights moving forward at guys with 54.
Well, you bringing up Virgil Ortiz, of course, Turki Al-Sheikh saying, I made Canelo a big offer. He should take it. If he doesn't, it's going to be Crawford, Ortiz. Of course, Ortiz take on Bohachik next week, I believe. So stuff coming up when it comes to Virgil Ortiz, Terence Crawford are perhaps coming together. Paulie, what's your thought on that? Or is Canelo still in the mix? Is he still in the driver's seat? What's your thought?
Yeah, I mean, I think Canelo will have watched Crawford tonight and feel like he can walk him down. That's my thoughts on it. I was watching Madrimov be on the front foot tonight. Crawford boxed well, especially as the fight wore on. He boxed even better, but I still saw Madrimov, you know, pushing back Crawford and forcing Crawford into that, you know, sort of back foot boxing more so than we've seen Crawford when he's been the boss. So I feel like Canelo will view that as an opportunity for a smaller guy to be walked down. And Canelo, one thing Canelo still does well, he walks you down very, very well. He's not active, which is why I don't think he beats the natural top super middleweights, but he walks you down very, very well. Let's see how he looks against Berlanga too, because you know every fight with Canelo is a big deal, and you know a lot of momentum can either be gained or destroyed based on how Canelo looks against Berlanga. But I want to just touch on what the champ was saying too, Chris. You know, the 154-pound division is so much fun right now, and it's gotten more fun because I think a lot of people didn't know about Madrimov, and I think tonight gave us an opportunity for everyone to see Madrimov. So now you got guys who you know are fun, but they're not superstars. You know, Virgil Ortiz, Fondora, Tim Tszyu, and then you got name guys like Crawford who's probably leaving, and he's going to try to chase Canelo if he can. Spence may move up. You know, he's a big name, but I honestly don't know what he's got left. But these are fun fights. Bohachuk is there. You know, Bohachuk is and Ortiz next week is going to be a real good fight. That's one I think everybody's gonna want to watch. Madrimov against I think Madrimov and Fondora's fun. I think Madrimov. And
how about Tszyu? We had a super chat asking about Madrimov, Tim Tszyu possibility to you.
And I mentioned Tszyu as well before because I think once Tszyu is back from the injury, I don't think that's a bad fight at all. I'd prefer it for a world title. So Madrimov doesn't have a world title right now, so I'd prefer a fight like that to have a title in the mix first because it is a great fight and it'd be cooler if they could face each other for a world championship. So these guys, there's a lot of good fighters, and if Crawford leaves. I mean, don't get me wrong. I know the sanctioning bodies decide not to strip guys just for no reason. But if Crawford leaves, technically, he should be stripped. Or or the WBA might let him keep it and just make up a belt for the new champion, right? But I mean, you'd hope that he gets stripped if he leaves a weight class, so that a weight class with this much talent can keep moving. Because this is the problem you have when guys jam up weight classes. When the sanctioning bodies help jam up, there's a lot of talent in this weight class. I think they'll all fight each other if the belts are available and they'll move. Because there's not a lot of stars, but they're all very, very good fighters.
Speaking of compelling weight classes, it has some compelling movement tonight in the heavyweight division. Big upsets on both sides. Let's start off. Andy Ruiz, Big Baby Miller got a draw after Andy Ruiz looks like broke his hand. He said it happened midway through the fight, but Andy Ruiz talked a lot about his conditioning. His conditioning didn't look there. He had good hand speed, good accuracy. Didn't look like his conditioning was great. Seemed to run out of gas midway through the fight. I thought Miller won the fight. Gentlemen, Chris, I'll start with you. What'd you think of the fight? Did you agree with the scorecards?
I thought Miller won too. I thought that he came on strong in the second half of the fight. Andy looked completely gassed by the fifth round. He looked super dominant early on. Looked like the world-class former world champion that he is. Good power, fast hands, really, really good technique. The stab jab to the body, the hooks upstairs, landing the right hook to land the left hook. Everything was going really, really well until round 4. And then just the gas tank just started to peter out. And Jarrell wasn't doing much at all early on. Basically just walking him down, being a punching bag. But then, round 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, started to pick it up, was letting his hands go. He hurt Andy to the body several times, which didn't help with the gas tank. But yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say it was a good fight. It wasn't a very entertaining fight. But it was two big guys who were, going back and forth, and it didn't get sloppy at all. They kept their technique, which was impressive. But yeah, I thought Jarrell, pulled that fight out. Close, but I think the strong finish down the road, down the stretch, I think was the difference for me. And Andy, you could see it in that 12th round, which I was surprised that the commentators didn't catch. That right hand looked compromised. He he was not throwing it at all. He was doubling up the left hand, only throwing the left hook. But regardless, I don't know if it would have made that much of a difference, because he could not hurt Jarrell. Jarrell has always had a good chin. And, that's why the Dubois fight, when he did get stopped, I've really looked at that and like, man, that really showed me that Dubois could really punch, because Jarrell's always had a great chin. He's been in with some big punchers. Another one tonight, and was walking through those power shots, no problem.
Levi Sullivan, even if he had a hand injury in the middle of the fight, did Ruiz's performance show that he can still hang with the best of the heavyweights? Are there positives to take away from it, Paulie? What's your thought on it?
Yeah, I'm someone who's had a lot of hand injuries, bad hand injuries in my career. I'll tell you that the lack of punch output doesn't necessarily mean he wasn't in shape. It could honestly, anytime I broke my hand, I had to fight at a slower pace. I had to hope that the pace would slow down. I had to hope my opponent didn't know my hand was broken so that he would cooperate, because I could be deceptive. Jarrell doesn't cooperate because he's always pressing the issue. So if you have an injured hand, you're not going to be able to put the numbers up because your hand is injured. So I don't necessarily question Ruiz's conditioning. Granted, after 2 years off, it could be an issue, of course, but knowing that after what I saw his hand, because guys always say they hurt their hands, but when I saw his hand, I knew that thing was broken, man. Yeah. And when your hand is broken, you cannot be active, and so therefore maybe your gas tank gets questioned. But I don't necessarily think for sure it has to be the gas tank. It might have been the injured hand. So a fighter fighting with one hand, it's hard to judge him. I think Andy Ruiz is probably fine if he has two hands, but you got to go heal up. I mean, especially you broke your hand early, like he said, and then you had to keep using it, so which means you're going to need surgery. If you punch on a broken hand, you're going to displace the bone, and that's why fighters end up needing surgery after they break their hand, because they typically will keep using the hand, and then the bone will displace. So Ruiz is not going to be around for a while. He's coming off a long layoff. You may have another one. We'll see.
Jared Anderson, Martin Bakole. Bakole scoring the knockout in round 5, dropped him in round 1, knocked him out a total of 3 times before finishing him. Chris, obviously a huge step back. What's your thought on his future and how he handled this fight? It reminded me a little bit of like the opposite of Foreman Moorer, where Moorer was elusive and hard to find, and then finally Foreman finds a big punch. It looked like Bakole found the big punch very early. It was very quickly found the big shot. What was your thought on it, Chris?
Well, Bakole was very George Foreman-esque all night long. I mean, early George, not just like a mean, just rough and rugged, Yeah, listen. This is a huge step back and possibly a step out for Jared Anderson. Jared Anderson has been a guy that has been highly touted as the next great American heavyweight. He's had some issues in terms of out of the ring stuff, but also just in some interviews and things that he said in terms of his passion for the sport. But leaving that all aside, I just saw him making the same mistakes that he's been making. The Charles Martin fight, which was his first step up fight, fighting a former world champion. And I rate that win very highly, and I rate Charles Martin very highly. Very good, athletic, former heavyweight, very, very like a real super heavyweight type style guy in terms of size and athletic and good. Could have been an athlete in any other sport, similar to how Jared Anderson is. But there were mistakes that he was making, pulling straight back, having straight legs and bending over. And I remember seeing those, and I was like, those are some mistakes. But yeah, you don't get exposed until you fight world-class guys. Charles Martin's a world-class guy. Got exposed, got the win, got through it. Cool. Now you're going to get better at it. I called this very next fight, and it was against I don't remember the guy's name. Some European guy that he was supposed to beat, making the same mistakes, and he made the same mistakes again tonight, and pulling straight back, getting hit with shots, and taking risks he didn't need to take, especially against a big guy the way he was fighting. So I don't know. I don't know if Jared actually can recover from this. If he can't make those adjustments, then he's not going to be able to beat these guys. He's a small heavyweight. He's a small heavyweight. Super athletic, absolutely. Obviously, he's got good power, but probably not world-class power in terms of what we saw tonight. And if he can't adjust and make those defensive maneuvers, then he doesn't need to be here. He's not going to be able to last with this current crop of super heavyweights. Zhilei Zhang, you can't play with that guy. You can't play with these guys. This is heavyweight. You can't be making those same mistakes that you made against lesser opponents. And so unless Jared can really go back to the drawing board, I don't think we're going to see him at a world-class level again.
Our final question of the night, Paulie, I'll start with you, but Chris, I want your opinion about it. This card, was considered one of the best cards in boxing history. I've been watching boxing for like 6 hours tonight. What were your thoughts on the overall card, the way it was paced, this being kind of the future of boxing, these mega cards? What was your thought on it, Paulie?
I think I like the competitiveness of the fights, and I like how the Saudis are doing. Turki Al-Sheikh, every single one of his cards has multiple upsets. So as I've said before, I've made this comment before that he's kind of discombobulated the ability of the odds makers that have had it so easy before, because nobody was fighting each other for a while. Promoters just look out for their A sides, and they make this devious matches where they'll match like a 1 versus 5, and the one winds up being a -500 favorite, and he's going to win anyway, even though it's a decent matchup. No, now you really can't tell who's going to win. 2-3 upsets every single card. Tonight was no different. You saw Valenzuela upset Pitbull. You saw Bakole blow away Jared Anderson. You saw Miller with the draw with Ruiz. He probably deserved to win the fight. So we are still going on that same pace. So I think from that perspective, making competitive fights is awesome. It's awesome. I just feel like a couple of things need to be adjusted, in my personal opinion. The lateness of this card consistently, you got Eminem coming on at like midnight Eastern time. You got to remember you're dealing with the East and West Coast. The main event cannot start at 1 a.m. Eastern time. People are not going to stay up. People are not going to care to care for a show like this. Also, you have to separate these fights. You can do a double or triple header and separate the two cards. Boxing fans do not watch 6-7 fights in a row. They're great. I mean, I'll watch it all night. I got nothing to do, bro. You know what I mean?
We're fight dorks. It's what we do.
Yeah,
right.
But people don't want to sit through 6-7 hours. You're not going to be able to attain the casual fan if you make them sit through 6-7 hours. And then on the East Coast, the main event doesn't go on until 1 o'clock in the morning. And then the main event winds up not being a barn burner. It winds up being the kind of fight we love, but it winds up not being a barn burner for the casuals to love. So I think his head is in the right place, but it just has to be compartmentalized the right way. I think if you make the card 2-3 fights, and that's it, and 2-3 of these kind of fights, make it 2 shows, man. I mean, you can time it right. You can start it at the right time, end it at the right time, and it'll be awesome, and people will love it, and everybody, and there's gonna be no complaints. I'm not even complaining. I'm just trying to make it give my take on how it could be better, because I love the matchups. Also, we don't really need Eminem. We don't need Eminem. We don't need all the stars that you got there. It's cool. It's awesome. But, let them sit ringside and hang out, like they do in Saudi Arabia. We want to watch the fights. I don't need to see Eminem perform. I liked Eminem. I grew up loving Eminem. Don't really need that right now, especially that it was already late on the East Coast. And now I got to sit through an Eminem concert before I get to the main event. You know, like it wasn't really what I wanted to do. You know, but overall, you know, it's something positive in the right direction. Mainly, boxing needs the matchups, and Turki Al-Sheikh makes the best matchups at the highest level, and that's the most important thing. So for me, that's why it's more pros than cons. But I think if you adjust it the right way, I think you can make this even better and attract even more fans to this, because the casuals, they're not going to understand how to sit through 6-7 hours.
Chris, trim a little bit of fat, like Paulie said, and this will be the future of boxing. What's your thought?
Yeah, I agree with most of the things you said, Champ. You know, I like the long cards as well, because I can. This is what I do for a living. I can sit back and watch these.
Yeah, for us, it's great, but I want as many people as possible to watch. You know,
and I can watch these great fights. I can analyze. I can watch 12 rounds and be locked in. I agree. I don't care about Eminem performing. I don't care about anybody performing. You want to do a walkout? Fine. I don't want to watch. I don't care about a concert,
especially if it's already midnight.
Anybody coming out. I didn't tune in for that. I'm a boxing fan. I want to watch boxing. Listen, when Terrence Crawford came out with Eminem when he fought Spence, that was cool. Don't need a performance. I don't care. I'm sitting there. I'm like, I want to watch a fight.
Yeah, because it's midnight already.
I want to watch a fight.
And that was just starting at midnight, you know?
Yeah, now, I mean, then we're just being, I mean, because it wasn't midnight over there where the fight was happening. And
of course, but you got to keep in mind your East Coast audience.
But we got lucky when the fights were over in Saudi, because then they're all afternoon, which messes up a lot of normal people. But
that messes up the West Coast, because now the West Coast is starting really early.
Honestly, I would be okay with that. If I can watch a fight at 9 a.m., I'm good. As soon as I wake up, I can go for a run, I can watch a fight. I'm good with that. So we're being a little you know, just being one-sided about the fight timing, whatever. But yeah, no, super late. It's 2:30 in the morning right now. We're still talking about this. But other than that, listen, I like the fact that Vegas is losing these betting lines. The fact that we're getting real fights that are hard to predict.
Real upsets.
I love it. We're getting real matchups, real fights, the way it's supposed to be. You're not supposed to always know who wins. Yeah, well, listen, there's a couple jobs you don't need to actually be right. Weather girl and odds makers in boxing. You never need to be right in those two. So finally, you know, like we're sticking to it. So we're getting some real fights that we don't really need to know. So, but other than that, I mean, I love what's going on. I hope this stays, you know, and it works. And I think each show will get better and better. This was the first show on U.S. soil. It won't be the last, I hope. So it seems like it did well. But yeah, it's just fine tuning. You know, this is like it's like anything else. As you get more and more reps in, you get better at it. But listen, I'm here for it. I'm buckled in. This is great that we're getting these types of fights, no matter when they are. Yeah, so late in the night, absolutely. Would I normally be asleep right now? Yes. Would I watch this in the morning normally? Yes. But you know, the fights are good.
Yeah, but we are a well-oiled machine here at ProBox TV. We'll talk about the fallout from all of these fights. We appreciate you sticking with us on YouTube. Download the app. Check us out every single day here at ProBox TV. We'll see you this week. For everybody behind the scenes, thank you so much. We'll see you next time.
Wednesday Night Fights.
Dynamite action on Wednesday Night Fights every other Wednesday on your boxing channel.
Coming up on your next Wednesday Night Fights, August 21st. Former Unified World Champion Swift Jarrett Hurd takes on former Unified World Champion Jason Banana Rosario. Live from the ProBox Event Center in Plant City. Get your tickets at proboxtv.com or take your chances at the door. Wednesday Night Fights.
For more ProBox TV, scan the QR code on the screen or go to the App Store and Google Play. ProBox TV, your boxing channel.